What does a social media specialist have in common with a science professor? What about a social justice and human rights scholar, or CEO? They are all UC Davis alumni and guests on Generation Aggie, the only UC Davis podcast in which students take the lead. I'm your host, Fiona Rose Beyerle, a recent alumna and social media intern. Join me wherever you find your podcast to learn about the lives of Aggie alumni from blue and gold lenses. Now, without further ado, let's welcome our next guest. Today we welcome one of my fellow interns on the social media team and our new host, Julliet Hill. The tables are turning as I'm moving into postgrad life and truly becoming an Aggie alum. We are here today to discuss this transition. Welcome, Julliet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julliet Hill. I am a third-year communication major. I'm from Fairfield, California, but currently residing in Davis. I am an undergraduate admissions intern and a member of STREAM. I grew up all over the place. My mom was in the military, so I've lived in Italy, Maryland, California. I'm on the UC Davis cheer team. And now that the tables have turned, Fiona, today I'm going to be taking over and I'm going to be interviewing you. So now that you've graduated, what are your plans? What do you plan to do?
I'm planning to just finish up the summer working on STREAM because I really love this job. And then this year I will be taking a gap year and to sort of figure out what I want to do next. And I will be traveling a bit and then also looking for a job and then looking into grad school options for next year.
Mm-hmm. That is like such a exciting yet nervous time for you, I'm sure, but Definitely. More exciting than anything.
Yes, it's very unsure, but I do think it's the next best step because I feel like in undergrad, I didn't have a ton of time to think about what I wanted to do next. I took summer classes every year and I basically always had a job, even like during summer and break. So I think this is much needed time.
Definitely. To sort of push off from there, where do you see yourself in 5 years post graduation?
Yeah, so I'm not someone who has a particular career path that they want to do. Like I know some people have like a dream job, like they want to be a doctor or they want to be a vet or something like that. I've never been like that necessarily. I've had jobs that I've thought about doing, from time to time, but overall, I just want to be hopefully happier in 5 years. I want to be healthier. I definitely want to keep working on my health, exercising regularly, eating less sugar. That's what gets me. I do eat a lot of sugar. And traveling. I love traveling. And as long as I think I'm working on those three things, so being happier, becoming healthier, and traveling, I think I'll be in a good place. And hopefully I have at least the beginning of a successful career. I'm not sure in which field yet, but as long as I'm able to work on myself and enjoy those things and enjoy time to do stuff I like, then I think I'll be in a good place.
I love that your goals aren't necessarily so career oriented. You're focused on yourself. I think we all need to take the time to think about that more. So, so jumping back to your good old undergrad days, what was your favorite memory at Davis?
Ooh, that's a hard one because I have a lot of favorite-ish memories and I have a lot of good memories. But overall, I would just say I was extremely lucky with the people I got placed with my freshman year. And I think that really kind of set the tone for my whole college experience. Like the people I met, my classmates, especially first year, my classmates, those are the people I stayed friends with basically the whole time. My friends, my coworkers, and I had a really great time in the dorm. So my floor mates, I got really lucky, placed on an amazing floor with an amazing group of people, Redwood Floor One forever. And just like little things, time with them. Like I think a lot of us freshman year, we spent so much time together on my floor, and we were all pretty different, but we made it work. Like all our personalities were a bit different, but it just worked. And just spending time with them, like we would have floor activities, we would bike to Dutch Bros together on Thursday evenings, and we would have movie nights and just little things like that with them, or just sitting in the lounge and talking, or sitting in the hallway and talking, just little things like that I really love. And that's what comes to mind when people ask me like, what was your favorite thing about college? It's that it was them. um, and we still talk today, like we still have our floor group chat going, and this is on Snapchat, which I know is a little maybe outdated, but still have that going, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. And it's just nice to like have that group of people, and even if we still don't talk every day, I know like they're still there for me, and like I'm still there for them to like wish them well in their life, and celebrate their successes. So I really love that.
That is good to hear because I necessarily didn't have the same experience. I had amazing roommates. I'm still friends with them to this day from my freshman year. But
Mhm.
floor wise, no one talked to each other. No one really said hi in the hallways. So
Yeah.
everyone listening, not all experiences are as amazing as Fiona's, but not all experiences are like as tragic as mine. So
I think it really depends. Like I've talked to a lot of people,
mhm.
and a lot of people also they didn't, their floor just like didn't connect. So I
Yeah,
think it really is like just by chance.
yeah,
And to be honest, when I was putting in my housing request, I put like a double in Segundo and I got a triple in Tercero. And at first I was like really
regular.
bummed. I was like, like this is annoying. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like that was the best spot I could be in. Like, and I ended up loving living in Tercero, and I loved that floor. So like I couldn't imagine if I would have gotten a double in Tercero, or sorry, a double in Segundo. I don't think it would have been the same experience
Yeah,
precisely. So I'm definitely glad that happened and that I was able to live on the floor that I did, because I was so fortunate to have that amazing floor. But yeah, not every floor is like that for sure. And like
yeah,
some people's floors just don't connect. And like that's okay too. That just doesn't happen always.
yeah. You find your group regardless, however way you manage to do it.
Yeah, it's all different. You might meet classmates, friends, like anyone really.
Yeah. All right. So next question is, what was the biggest obstacle you overcame during your time at Davis?
So for me, I came from a high school in a low income area, and
Mhm,
people from my high school generally, um, well, some of them went to college, but not all of them did. And especially starting out at a 4 year in a science degree is very unusual,
mhm,
coming from my high school. So definitely the biggest challenge. And I would go as far as to say I never overcame this really,
mhm,
is academics, because it was really hard. Coming from my high school, I was considered pretty solid
mhm,
uh, in all subjects like math, science, English. But then coming to Davis, it was really challenging. In a way, like competing with students who had a much better K through 12 education, and that really just went to show me that a good K through 12 education makes a huge difference in your life. And I came in and I knew I would feel somewhat behind coming in just because I knew my high school wasn't the greatest, but I didn't realize how much of a difference it made, especially throughout the whole 4 years. I felt
yeah,
like I really had to work extra hard those whole 4 years. And another thing too, I feel like professors, like they don't necessarily realize that a lot of students hadn't learned certain things. Like I remember hearing in some science classes, professors would say like, "Oh, you learned this in high school," and it's like, "Oh, I never did." So it was all new for me. So I think coming from from a not strong STEM background was really challenging, and I definitely made improvements, but I think it was always something that was in the back of my mind, um, is that struggle. And I honestly would say there was never a moment that I had felt I had figured it out. I think it
mhm,
was just constantly trying to, you know, improve and learn as much as I could.
mhm.
Um, and I think I definitely was able to. I made it. I
Yeah.
graduated. But I think it's really important to recognize that when you're coming to college, you're all coming from very different places. And
Mhm.
I think this just really goes in to show that you shouldn't compare yourself to others, which I
Yeah.
know is something we hear all the time. And at least for me, like I never really took that to heart. And in a way, I still don't, even though I tell myself I should, because everyone's coming from like a different place. So it's not, I think, helpful in any way to like compare yourself to someone else. Like you don't know what background they had. Like, for example, in my physics class, if I was struggling with a topic, I was friends with this one girl and she would know all these topics. And one day I asked her, like, I was like, how do you know this all? Like, you seem to learn it really fast. And she told me, oh, like I took AP physics in high school, and my teacher was really good. So
Mhm.
she'd known all the topics. So I think it's just really important when you come to college, or if you're in college already and you feel less than, there's a reason you're there. There's a reason you got in, and you're all coming from a different place. So there's no use comparing yourself. It's just best to work on like your best self, I think.
Yeah. So would you say like it didn't necessarily get easier to manage those feelings, but you just learned how to deal with them better?
Yes, I definitely think, yeah, it never got easier. I think I just became more accepting of, I don't even know how to put it, just more understanding of a lot of students might have had this education beforehand. And it was really hard for me to find someone else who had come from like a low income high school us in my classes, and that was a very rare thing for me. But when I did, that was really nice to like see someone else who had come from like a similar background, also doing it, because a lot of my friends, they had gone to private schools or they had gone to really highly ranked public schools in the Bay Area. So like they came in with a really solid background, which is, great.
Mhm.
But it was really hard to relate because I didn't have that background at all. And I think just it never became easier. I think I just became more accepting of it and just kind of took things like as they are and then did my best with what I could.
I think that's a feeling that so many people deal with and not enough people talk about. You
Oh,
hear it every once in a while, but like it's something that's in the forefront of so many college students' minds. Like, why am I here? The imposter syndrome that everyone likes to mention, but no one really talks about it.
yes, for
So,
sure. And I think that stands especially true freshman fall quarter.
mhm.
It hit me like a bus. Sorry, Unitrans. It really hit me like a bus though, because I just wasn't prepared. My studying techniques were not on point. Like at my high school, I did really well, but just the bar wasn't as high.
Mhm.
So, I come in to college and I wasn't really prepared to study as
Mhm.
much as I should have been. And it just was really challenging. And I think it's easy to feel really alone, especially in the first few months of college. And you don't really realize everyone else is going through the same thing. Um,
Mhm.
and I saw this happen to my floor too, because later in the year, like our freshman year, we all kind of talked about it and we all kind of were feeling the same way fall quarter, but no one had ever mentioned it,
Mhm.
which I think is something that should be talked about. And since I mentor still for UC Davis, and I mentored last year through this program called Bio Launch, it's with the College of Biological Sciences. That's one of the first things I tell the students I've mentored is that, especially like fall quarter, most people are struggling, even if they don't admit it. And I think it's really important to know that you're not the only one, struggling and going through it, because I think a lot of people just don't talk about it. They're just, focused on, oh, I'm having such a good time, like it's fall quarter, but there's a
Mhm.
lot more like going on behind the scenes in their mind. So I think that is really important to acknowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, sort of moving into that mentor advice, what advice would you give to a current student at UC Davis?
There's a lot of little things I would say, but the overall main message here, I think, is college is as much a time for personal growth as it is for academic growth. So I think it's really important to not forget, to also focus on building, relationships, networking with friends, professors, doing those kinds of things, because those kinds of relationships will serve you well, not only in college, but also post-college. When you're trying to get a job or you're looking to go to grad school, you can reach out to one of your friends or your professors as like a mentor possibly. So I think that's really important, and doing as much as you can to explore your different options. I think college is as much a time for exploration as it is for, figuring out your major. So I think as far as academics, work hard and push yourself, but also if there's time to explore, I think this is the time to try something new, try a different class, try a different club. I think that's really important. And definitely being open to pivoting in your life or changing majors, I think is really important too, because I think, a lot of people go into college and like they pick one major, but then they end up really liking something else. And I think a lot of people might hesitate to change their major for various reasons. But I think if you can do it, I think that's the time to do it and be open to that and be okay if you're changing your major. If things don't go as expected, being okay with that.
I think if anything, COVID has taught us is to not take advantage of the time you have. I'm a
Yes.
third year and I feel like time has gone by so fast. I haven't been able to do everything that I said I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
so don't wait around for things to happen. Like go out and pursue what you want to happen while you're in college, because it's sort of that last hurrah before adulthood strikes. So
Definitely. I 100% agree with that.
yeah. Okay. And so, what was your most memorable course while at Davis?
The first one that comes to mind is a GE, a general education requirement class that I took.
Mhm.
And it was a class on witches. At the time, I think the class code was Humanities 13, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was called Witches. And basically, it was about like what is a witch, what has like a witch been through history, who gets declared a witch, who does versus who doesn't.
Yeah.
And it was just such an interesting class. And I was really into learning about witches at the time too, because the show Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, I think it
Love
was in
it.
its like first or second season. It was still like very early on in the show when it was good.
Mhm. Let's
Because
see no shade.
yeah, it kind of went downhill from there. Like season 3 and season 4, I don't really know what happened there, but
Completely agree.
yeah, it was, but it was still in the beginning of the show, and I thought the show was really interesting, and so it was really fun kind of going to that class, and we would talk about like different things, and I guess you would say like witch history, and there a lot of the stuff we'd learned about would be reflected in the show, which I
Mhm.
thought was really cool, which I think just really goes to show they put a lot of effort into the early seasons of making the show, I guess as like truthful,
Accurate. Yeah.
accurate as possible. So that was really interesting. And it was just so different from any class I had ever taken. Like, what it's not every day you walk into your class and you're like, all right, we're gonna talk about like Satanism today, or
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about like
Yeah.
these witches from this place today. And it was just really interesting too to just learn about, I guess learn about witches throughout history and how they differed and those sorts of things. So definitely that class I think was just so fun for me.
I had a similar experience, but with mummies,
Love
Ant 20, Anthropology 26, Ant 26. And it was like the same thing. I was like, why not take a class on mummies?
exactly.
And you learned all this new information that you'd never thought of.
Well, yeah, and two, it's like you're getting GE credit for it. Like
Exactly.
it's credit for a class. Like you might as well take something interesting. Like I know they
Yeah.
have a vampires class as well, and
Mhm.
I really wanted to take that one. It just never worked out with my schedule, and very sad. So anyone who's taken vampires or is able to take it, I'm very jealous because that class looked really interesting. And I think
Yeah,
Davis has a lot of really interesting GEs.
for sure. It's
Yeah.
like it's that same thing that we said earlier. Like you're in college, do it while you can. Why not? You're never gonna have that opportunity again.
When can you take a class on mummies or witches
Yeah,
in
literally.
for college credit?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, did you have any work experience while you were here at school?
Yes, I did. I actually had a few different jobs. So my first job, well, actually, okay. My first job was the job that I had still had in high school. And that was, I was a children's theater camp aide. And so during my first year, when it was like a break, so like winter break, spring break, I would go back home and then I would work for those weeks. So I guess that's technically like my first college job. And I kept that throughout. I think the first 2 years, like if I would go home for a week, I would aid for a week. But then my first like job at Davis was I worked in a research lab for 2 years. And that was my freshman and sophomore year because I was able to get into a lab very quickly, which also I don't want to give the wrong impression. That's very rare. And I got extremely lucky, right place, right time, I think. Most people don't start working in labs till their third year, I believe. So that was my job, my first and second year. And then my junior year, I worked in an optometry office. And I worked there for I think about 9 months, but it just wasn't really working out for a variety of reasons. Um, but that's okay because I was really glad all that happened because it led me to this job. Because then I was just going on Handshake, which for those who don't know, Handshake is kind of like a job search for UC Davis students. And I believe other colleges have it too. I don't know if it's still called Handshake, but Davis, it's called Handshake. And so I was looking for a job really quick. And I found the opening for this job. And I didn't think I would ever get it, to be honest, but I applied anyways. And I got this job. And I've loved this job so much. This has definitely been my favorite job. So I'm really glad all that kind of led me to this.
Yeah, I feel like we all had the same experience. We all applied, like, what is this? I don't know. And then we are like, I don't think I'll get it. And then we got it. And now it's like the best career move we all accidentally stumbled upon.
Oh yeah, it was very much an accident, but I was very much just like, okay, I'm gonna go with the flow and see what happens here. Um, best decision. I think that doesn't always work out with jobs. Like there's been other jobs I've applied for and that did not work out that same way. But I think just taking the chance sometimes is worth it. And this was 100 or like 1,000% worth it. Like I love this job as much I think you do too. And
Absolutely, yes.
job.
And so sort of piggybacking off of that career move, how did Davis shape who you've become today?
Yeah, I think Davis has shaped me in a lot of ways. I came in very focused on academics because that's who I was in high school. I was the person very much focused on academics. I had a lot of extracurriculars as well, but academics was the main thing for me. And when I got to college, I definitely saw my self worth as how well I was doing in classes, which isn't true or healthy. And I think a lot of us, that's how we are coming into Davis. And I think that mindset isn't good to have. So that's definitely something I had to like readjust as I kind of like refound myself at Davis, figuring out my personality, who I wanted to be apart from like my high school self and just focusing on academics. So I think definitely Davis kind of helped me learn that it's like there's more to me than just how well I'm doing in a class. Like, who am I beyond that? And I think it's really hard to see life beyond school because we're in school for so long. And like, especially, I was always doing summer classes. So I was like really always in school. So I think it's hard to see that life beyond school, like what happens next. And then I think once you get to the point, like post grad, like as soon as you graduate, it's like, okay, do I want to go back for grad school or do I want to, get a job and just, you have the time where it's like, okay, I'm not in school. Like, for example, this past summer, I wasn't in school. Like, I still had this job, but I wasn't in school. So I had a lot more free time to myself. So it's like, okay, like, what do I like doing? Answer like reading and like writing and theater, but it's just nice to try and figure out like what do I like beyond school, like when I have the time to do stuff that I want to do. So I think just Davis helped shape who I am by finding out more, working more on like my personal growth, as well as academics, and that personal growth is just as important as your academics,
Mhm.
and making sure you find time for that.
Mhm. It's sort of ironic that school was able to show you like academics aren't completely who you are.
Yeah. A little bit.
And so, what was the greatest lesson that you think you learned while you were in college?
Okay, so this is really cheesy, and if I think 18-year-old me would have heard myself saying this, I would have lost it. But
Mhm.
I think the biggest lesson that I learned, or sorry, greatest lesson that I learned is that everything happens for a reason. And that's something I truly believe. And you never know like what's going to happen next in your life or like who you're going to meet. For example, like getting this job before, the job I was working in before, I wasn't really loving. It just wasn't for me.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to quit because I was like, well, I don't have another job lined up and like I need money for like groceries and books or whatever. Um, so I just kind of applied for whatever I could. I wasn't really expecting anything to come out of it. I was just thinking, oh, I just need something for like money.
Mhm.
Um, and I got this job and I really, as you say, love this job so much. So I think just being patient with how things play out in your life, because you honestly you never know who you're gonna meet. Some of my best friends, like the way I met them, like when I think back to like how I met them, it's so random and just like wow, like that's a interesting way a friendship came out, but
Mhm.
you never know who you're gonna meet or like where your next opportunity is really. So I think just, being kind to yourself, and if something doesn't work out, there's something else there for you. And it might not happen right away. Like everyone's on like a different life path, I think. And that's another thing I realized in college, everyone's on very different life paths. So just, everything's happening for a reason, and just you kind of have to wait and see what happens next and be open to it to the best you can.
Absolutely. I love that you picked that because that has been my motto since freshman year. Like
It's a good
me and
one.
my roommates would stay up until wee hours of the morning talking about like coincidences that had happened to get us to the point we were at. And we like started saying like everything happens for a reason. And it
Right.
is so true. I live by that saying you always end up where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. Even if
Um,
it feels weird at times, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to get through those rough patches to end up where you were meant to be. And so, sort of speaking of that, did you change your major at all while you were here at Davis?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, Technically, yes, I did. However, my major change wasn't as drastic as most people's. So
Mhm.
I came in as an EEB major, which is evolution, ecology, and biodiversity. So it's still within the College of Biosci. So that's
Mhm.
what I came in as. But to be honest, I didn't really, or sorry, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I came into college. I knew I was going to major in some sort of biology, but I didn't really know what all the different options meant. So when I was applying for Davis and I clicked bio, there was like a huge drop down menu of all these majors. And I was like, well, okay, I kind of know what these words mean at like
Mhm.
a high school, like AP bio level understanding, but I didn't really know what each major entailed necessarily. So I was always interested in evolution. I think it's really fascinating. So I just picked that one. I got in, and then throughout my first year, I kind of figured out more like what the majors in the College of Biosci meant.
Mhm.
And then I picked biochemistry, but then I ended up not being that major for very long just because you had to do some certain chemistry classes that I really didn't didn't think I had it in me to do at the time. Um,
Yeah.
so I decided to just go with the general biological sciences major, which is you take a little bit of everything, and I think that was the best fit for me.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that worked out really well. I think that was the major I was supposed to do. So I did change it, but not very drastically, because especially the first 2 years in the College of Bioscience, most of your classes are like the same. So
Mhm.
changing my major didn't like set me back or anything. Like I didn't have to take like an extra quarter or anything, because I was taking all the classes that I would need to for any of those majors basically.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's good to point out too that like it is okay to change your major.
Yeah,
I think so
yeah,
many people are hesitant, but you have to pursue what is right for you. And if whatever major you're taking right now isn't right for you, like it's okay to change. It is okay to stay that extra quarter if you need
yes.
to, if it ends up being the right major for you.
Yes, I know multiple people where, they started out in a certain major and they changed it after their second year, which at the time I remember them thinking like, wow, this is really late. It's not late. Like it's totally worth it, staying that extra quarter if you can, or even the extra year. Like there's a lot of people that go to college for 5 years and that's totally okay. Like you don't have to do it in 4. Like
Mhm.
not everyone does it in 4. Like that's just a number.
Yeah,
Really like doing it for you, and like if you are going to change your major, like do it for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so did you know what you wanted to do starting university?
Well, in kindergarten I wanted to be a rock star and a zookeeper. so,
Okay.
so kind of similar, kind of. I was pretty sure starting in like middle school, high school, that I was going to do something with biology. I wasn't 100% sure. I was pretty sure I was going to major in it though, which I did. I have also really loved writing. From like elementary school, I would write all the time when I was supposed to be probably doing other stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and I've always kind of kept up with that. I like, writing like fiction writing, creative writing. I also like writing entertainment, different like little articles, and then I wrote a little bit for the UC Davis website, and that was really cool. Just little tips, which you did too, so that was awesome. um but yeah, I knew it wanted to be something biology, maybe some writing in it. Still not 100% sure. Like I said earlier, I'm not someone who necessarily has like a dream career. I have
Mhm.
a lot of different interests, um so I'm not really sure what my job will be.
Mhm.
I could see it being something very random that I couldn't even think of off the top of my head. But I think I kind of maybe kept with what I wanted to do starting university. And I knew that was something with biology, and I definitely knew I wanted to work on my writing. So,
Mhm. It's good to have so many different interests because you know that if something doesn't work out for you, you always have something else that you can try and pursue.
yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to say, for everyone listening, I minored in art history, which
Mhm.
probably sounds like a strange combination, biological sciences and art history. But I think that's another really good thing to point out about Davis is you can take a minor that has nothing to do with your major, and they're pretty flexible with minors. And I'd say it's easier at Davis to throw in a minor than it is at other schools, from what I've heard, like talking with friends. So that's something I really liked, being able to have those two very different subjects as classes throughout my day. So that's something also of interest, I think, when looking into schools.
Absolutely. And then, so our final question, you sort of answered it throughout the interview, but if you just want to put it all together, what was your major and are you working in that field now, planning to work in that field?
Yeah. So my major was biological sciences, as I've said, and my minor was art history, just in case someone was not listening for a few seconds. Am I working in the field right now? Not at the moment because I'm working in social media, but I do plan to work in the field at some point. I'm not necessarily sure how or what kind of job I will have, but I do plan to work in that field. I would like to do some research, maybe like vaccine research would be something of interest, or cancer, obviously, not obviously. That would be of interest to me as well. Maybe science writing too. I'm not 100% sure, like I said. And I think a lot of people don't really know exactly where they're going to end up. And I think that's okay as well. Some people have like a certain job they're aiming for, and like that's cool. That's just never really been my personality. So I definitely anticipate working in the biology field at some point, but stay tuned to see how, because I'm not even sure.
Yes, this time in your life is such like an explorative time.
Right.
So I wish you all the best luck, Fiona.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for passing on the torch to me. I hope I do you justice with our next season, but I'm glad we got to finish off this season with you.
Thank you. And thank you for taking over as host. I'm really excited to see what you do. And I couldn't imagine anyone else hosting this next. So
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Fiona Rose, for such an amazing first season of Generation Aggie. She has passed the mic, and I am excited to announce I will be your new host for our next season of Generation Aggie. Till then, take care and go Ags.